Rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I ask for a moment of silence to remember the services and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nations and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods.
Can I add something to that? It's been almost a year since we lost Mayor Datcherson. It was August 15th. I'd like to add him to that moment of silence. Thank you.
Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Here.
Councilmember Jemna.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Sackett.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Noon.
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson. Here. President Kelly.
Here. This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, the official newspapers for the Township of Rockaway, on January 11, 2019. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards of Rockaway Township. 6, we have designation Sergeant of Arms. Township Code 2-5.15, decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. The sergeant of arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. I see Officer Hoskinson that's there, and I also see Sergeant Takis. Both of you are Sergeant of Arms?
I'm a sergeant at arms, all across.
Great, thank you, sir. Go on to 7, which is the adoption of minutes. Do you guys want to do this all in one shot, or do you want to do individually? That's there. One shot's good?
I have a question on June 25th,
Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
page 7. Says that,
Hold on one second, I'm trying to find it too.
page 7 on June 25th.
Microphone, can you?
Sorry, it gets turned on. Page 7 on June 25th, midway down. It says, President Kelly stated funds must be moved from other projects, and I had it written, must be moved forward for other projects. So I'm just questioning that.
Whatever everybody says. Is that we're talking about the basketball court and stuff like that, and the savings?
It's regarding the capital funding ordinance.
Yeah, that was where I was talking about the 102,000 that Randolph had spent, and then the savings that we could maybe occur, we could use some other places in that project in the field.
So it should be, you're going to take money from other projects?
No.
It
that's not
should be
right.
for other.
Yeah.
Just that's it. Other than that, everything's good.
Do you need to make a vote for the change, or just you're using for,
I can make that change.
Okay.
It's just whatever.
is everybody okay with that? The adoption of minutes would be, 1 would be June 11, 2019 regular meeting, 2 would be June 19, 2019 special meeting, and 3 would be June 25th, 2019 regular meeting with the small change with the word from to for. Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second. Mr. Sackman, a second. No discussion anymore, correct? Anybody? Clerk, do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Jemna. Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Abstain.
Vice President Abrahamson,
Abstain.
Council President Kelly,
Yes. I have 6 yeses, 0 noes, 3 abstentions, motion carries. We have ordinances to adopt. One is ordinance would be 0-19-15, amending Article 4, Chapter 2, Rules of, Article 5, Chapter 2, Rules of Procedure, Meetings of the Council, subsection 2-5.1, Governing Rules, subsection 2-5.2, Regular Meetings, and 2-5.8, Elections and Duties of the revised general ordinance of the Township of Rockaway. At this time, open it to the, we're going to make a motion first to,
Motion.
yeah.
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, who was the first? Mr. Jackson? Who's going to claim second?
I do.
At this time, it's open to the public. If anybody wishes to comment on this particular ordinance, O-19-15. How are you? If you can just put your name and address on for the record.
Sean Bernard, 34 Fleetwood.
I'm sorry, 44, please?
34.
34.
34 Fleetwood. Just reading through this, there's a couple things like comments, issues, questions I have, clarifications, just want to ask about. There's the word, we use the word shall all over the administrative code, and it's kind of confusing. It goes back and forth between whether or not it's required or whether or not it's an optional action. I think the Supreme Court actually said don't, or anytime the word shall is in federal code, read it as may, and then they have standards that they use may and must now. Just wondering if that's something that I want to think about. The section about I read the original code about the council president as like a check and balance on the council format as a whole. And it seems, I agree that it seems that some of the code has been kind of autocratic where the president can have a lot of power. And I'm not speaking to anybody specifically, talking about future-proofing the code. It seems to have swayed a little bit too far that way. And I think some of the changes here might sway a little too far in the other direction. It's no longer just a check and balance on the council, which if you guys don't want that, that's fine. I mean, there's no requirement to have a president in like the Faulkner Act, I believe. But it just seems, it's just a rubber stamp, it's just a figurehead. Anytime a majority changes, it seems they can just vote in, vote out a council president, which if it's just a figurehead and doesn't really have any power, why bother having it at all? Just remove it. Just remove the council president, if that's what you guys want. Another section about Robert's Rules of Order, again. You guys always bring this up so much, but it's not really, there's no binding use for it. Everybody brings it up for one way, and then you bring it up for the other way, and everybody's like, well, it doesn't really matter. So just remove it. Remove it from the code. If you guys like a specific piece of the code, just codify it, like a point of order, a point of information, just throw it in the code. Otherwise, just cut it, dump it. Another question I had, I wasn't sure of the answer. I don't think it specifies anywhere in the code that the president or the vice president is actually a member of the council. I'm not sure if that's something that could be inferred from like the Faulkner Act, but it doesn't actually specify anything. It reads just presiding officer of the council shall be the president. It doesn't say he's a member of the council, she's a member of the council. It's just kind of ambiguous and vague. Just something to think about. And I think that's.
May I ask, the last one, where did you see that, did you say?
It's in both the existing one and the new one, the
Okay.
election duties 258A.
In the code, not the Faulkner Act, okay.
Yeah, the code.
Okay,
Because the
thank
Faulkner
you.
Act, I don't think talks about, there's no president.
Okay.
I think, right? Anybody? No, okay.
258.
Yeah. So, it doesn't actually specify. I don't think it specifies. I could be completely
Mr. Adjourn, wasn't there a statute, there was a question about that in
2-5.8 specifies the offices of President, Council, and Vice President.
But in 2018, there was a question from a member of the public about the term of a president or vice president being only a year, not 2 years. And that was under a statute that was cited. I don't know if you recall that.
I recall our determination on the issue and was raised by Mr. Jeniak that the 2-year term specified in our code for the Council President is a valid term for the Council President under all applicable law.
Do you remember what the statute was for that?
At the moment, no.
Okay. There was a statute that addresses the council president, vice president, for its term itself. You know, at the reorg, it's
Right.
they're selected at that
actually-
time for the year.
Does it
you know.
specify they're a member of the council? I know in this section it's just vague.
I thought it would be the officer of the council, but in order to be anything, you have to be a council member to be a component of that. I think it's kind of
I would hope so.
self-informative.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking to clarify that. I think that's it.
So you have, back in 2013 and 2014, there was a change in regard to the ordinance of 251 that, at that time, for the governing body, I guess it worked to provide additional powers to the council president to make his discretion. And shall and may, one being permissive, one being mandatory, is what, from what my experience has always been in that manner, as far as that goes. And even
Shall is mandatory and
shall is
our council
mandatory
code.
and may is more permissive, where
Okay.
it may or may not. And there are some portions of the code that we have in the administrative code that does say may or shall, and we use that accordingly.
Okay.
As far as Robert rules go, I guess in the rules of order and most governing bodies or committees and stuff like that, it's basically a rule book for us to look to and turn to guidance. As you've seen in the past, our administration uses it. I've also used it, and other members in the past have used it as well. And it's a great tool to kind of refresh yourself in regards to how certain things are voted on and how things are handled, and moving forward with that. So there's got to be some type of a rule book of a better understanding, though it's not binding, but it does set somewhat of a precedent for us to follow and move forward. So if we've used it where the administration and it works for the administration, I would imagine that we would use it all the time, that it would work for both sides of the aisle, whether it's the council or the administration.
It's good intentions. I think it confuses a lot of the
It does.
public.
I have to agree with
especially.
you. A lot of things that are confusing with the code. A lot of things contradict each other sometimes, statute, code, Robert's rules. But I don't think everybody can get it 100% right. We just try to do our best to do so. So, and then I think that was it that you had. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, it was just the balance of power thing, check and balance, council president versus council kind of.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
And you know what? The position's a tough one too.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, you have no idea. Trust me. But in any event, if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that wishes to speak on this particular ordinance? With that being said, it's closed to the public.
Council President.
Mr. Jenian?
Council President, I believe in the binder before the Council President, you have a copy of the municipal charter law.
Bear with me here for a second. We do.
Page 42, section C.
Of the Faulkner Act?
Of the municipal charter law, yeah.
Do you have a particular statute rather than?
I believe the pages are numbered, but yes, I do have a statute also.
I am on page 42.
So it's 40:69A-180, section C.
Yes. This is actually the statute that I was asking Mr. Archifano about.
Perhaps you could read that for the public's benefit.
The council at its organization meeting shall elect the president of the council from among the members thereof, and the president shall preside at its meetings and perform such other duties as the council may prescribe. In the absence of the president, the council shall elect a temporary presiding officer. Compensation of the mayor, council members, and department heads shall be fixed by the council immediately after its organization.
I believe the word shall, which is non-discretionary, is used. That the council shall elect a president and a vice president.
That's what it says, correct?
Thank you.
Is there anything else, Mr. Genia?
That was it. Thank you.
Anybody here on the dais have any questions? Mr. Yetrofano, I just have one quick question for you. With the 4069A 180C, if it has in here for the Faulkner Act and the statutory requirement, and as we were just talking about shall and may, can the municipality circumvent the statute and modify that into the code to somewhat contradict the statute?
Well, the word circumvent and contradict are your words. Our opinion is that this amendment to the ordinance does not impinge on the statute in any way.
So if the statute here says a year, shall be for a year, what you impose to change is something opposite of that.
No.
So if the council changes, if the council has a vote to change the vice president or president in midstream, it's not different than what we have here in the statute?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? With that being said, clerk, do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak.
No.
Councilmember Smith.
No.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson.
No.
President Kelly.
No. We have 5 yeses, 4 noes. Motion carries.
And it was 15, right?
That was 19-15.
Yes. Okay.
We can move on to ordinance number 2, O-19-16. And do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Sackett in a second. At this time, I'm going to open it to the public. If anybody wishes to speak in regard to ordinance to adopt O-19-16, come up to the microphone. Seeing no one, it's now closed. Any discussion? Mr. Jeniak, any discussion?
No, thank you.
Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak.
No.
Councilmember Smith.
No.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson.
No.
President Kelly.
No. I have 5 yeses, 4 noes. Motion carries. Last for ordinances to adopt is O-19-17. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak, please come up to the microphone. Again, that's for ordinance O-19-17. Seeing none. I'm sorry, we had a...
You read the title of that, Council President?
I will. O-19-17, amending Article 5, Chapter 2, Organization of the Township Government, subsection 2-6.3, Township Attorney of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Rockaway. Did you want me to read the other ones as well?
You did. You did.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Quinn, second. And I'll offer it again at this time for the public. If there's anybody from the public who wishes to speak about this, ordinance 019-17, please come to the microphone. Seeing none, it is closed to the public. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jeddinack?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
President Kelly?
No. I have 5 yeses, 4 noes. Motion carries. Number 9, we have presentation by the Verchia Company to discuss Wawa. I was informed that they were asked not to attend tonight, and there are going to be some conversations with administration. So therefore, I'm going to pass on 9 and move right to the public.
I just want to make a correction. They sent me an email that they were not going to.
No, I talked to them. They told me the story and the conversation took place between Mrs. Ferrante and Mrs. Seeger.
Okay,
We
that's
did
not
not
what
advise,
they related.
just for
That's-
the record, we did not advise them not to come. It was totally up to them.
Council President, can you clarify the record?
Yeah, I did have a conversation with them. I do know that there was a request for a conversation from Mrs. Ferrante around 4:36. You sent an email. Tried calling them on the phone, and then I did get a phone call from them saying that they were asked not to attend, that there were going to be further discussions concerning Wawa, and that they were going to have a meeting of the minds of some of the professionals at a later date, and that they weren't going to be here tonight. That was a conversation I had with them, so.
All right, well,
okay.
conversation between us.
Mrs. Seeger, I understand. There's an email that you have
I just want to correct the record that we did not tell them not to come. We told them it was up to them, and if they wanted to have a meeting with the administration, staff, they could, and if they were not going to attend, to please send a message to the clerk, which I understand they did, and copied myself.
I concur with that.
Yeah, my conversation was different, unfortunately. Moving forward, we're going to open to the public. It is.
Good to hear your conversation.
They've been trying to do something with Rockaway for 3 years.
3 years. No.
And even trying to work with what they call our solicitor, trying to get escrow monies together to move forward with the professionals. And there is a chain of emails that I've seen that somewhat contradict some of the conversations that just took place. So hopefully we can move forward and forge ahead and see if there's a way we can work on the zoning plan and maybe let our planners move forward with that. And we can get a great rateable and allow another business possibly to grow since they've outgrown their location currently now. So I hope that it works forward and moves forward. 10, we have open to the public. Mr. Press?
David Press, 71 Oakland Avenue. In response to what comments that were just made, pretty funny that you're saying that you're upset that somebody's trying to get something done to benefit the town when you people haven't been doing anything to benefit the town for the entire time you've been in office. Okay, now, behavior at the last meeting was absolutely inexcusable. I'm not talking about the public. I'm not talking about Mayor Puzio. I'm not talking about council members Quinn, Jackson, Sackett, Freelander, or Noon. I'm talking about Mr. Kelly and Ms. Abramson. I hope someone treats you the way you treated Ms. Clipperton. When Ms. Abramson and Mr. Jedniak decided didn't file the petitions to run for re-election, some members of the public thought that meant the nightmares were over. However, that was clearly not the case. When Mr. Kelly lost to Mayor Puzio, some members of the public thought the problems were over. If there are any questions about this, Mr. Kelly's behavior at the last meeting confirmed this is clearly not the case. We cannot wait until January 1st, 2020, when Mr. Kelly and Ms. Smith are effectively neutered by being on the small end of the 7-2 majority. The only thing better would be if the two of you left office or removed from office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Press. Mr. Alardi?
Michael Lardy, 19 North Brookside Drive. I just had one question. The special meeting on July 30th, was there an outcome of finding when had the hearing on that Friday?
There's still tomorrow is another extension of that hearing.
So there was an extension, so we don't know if that was a
No, there were
special
some
meeting
other
or
points
not?
that were added on there, so it's a continuation of that.
Okay, so that meeting may still be deemed.
Can we ask the attorney for his opinion on what the ruling was by the judge so far?
At this point, the judge determined that the mayor, who was accused of not being able to call a special meeting, was able to call a special meeting. I have the decision here. In fact, it doesn't speak kindly of the actions of the people who tried to avoid the meeting. We can make copies available if you want to read them. We can give them to the clerk, which she already has a copy. I mean, you can ask her for a copy of the decision. The judge also indicated that in addition to the fact that the meeting was appropriately held and called by the mayor, he also decided that, in fact, it had been properly noticed pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. He also indicated that the information regarding a complaint that they made, the way the township attorney's appointment was set forth on the agenda was appropriate, and the fact that Yachafano and Perone were appointed and voted by the majority of councilors also. Those are the decisions he's made to this point. He'll be making other decisions tomorrow about complaints which have been brought, which I'm not going to discuss because there's still litigation.
Okay.
It's currently going on. There was 3 points, I think, Mr. Perone, that there was 3 components of it.
Yes, but since it's still pending, Mr.
Right, I know. I mean, you divulged a lot for a pending matter, but it's still going on for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
All over Facebook, buddy.
Thanks, Mr. Lardy.
Thank you.
Mrs. Degman?
I have a couple of things. Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. One is, I'm kind of glad to see that the presentation isn't being done by Wawa, because Green Pond Road right now is an absolute horrendous mess with all the traffic that's there. It takes me 2 minutes to get from Valley View Drive to Green Pond Road. And then, if I'm going on 80, even 80 West, it will take me 15 minutes to get from Green Pond Road to the exit for 80 westbound. If I have to go east, it's another 5 or 6 more minutes. So, I mean, that area is not the place to put a Wawa. The other thing is, a number of months ago, we discussed the possibility of a resolution regarding short-term Airbnb, and I was wondering if the council has done any investigation. We did have an ordinance that was done through Randolph, and we were wondering if you had discussed it or even thought about it since then. And the other thing is, I believe this is at least the 4th meeting that Mr. Jeniak has been on the phone. Now, I understand there are times when people would necessitate people being on the phone, but I believe that this council has absolutely overstepped its bounds by the number of times that people are on the phone. And I think it's time we know whether it's allowed and how often it's allowed, and if it's not, then maybe something should be written into the code.
Mr. Bernard, did you want to talk again?
I'm good, thank
You're
you.
good? Okay. We'll counsel Mr. Bernard. Mr. Waters. How you doing? Same, thank you.
Jim Waters, 48 Seneca Avenue, Rockaway Township. Actually, I knew we were going to have a meeting tonight, Tuck, because you brought water again.
Yeah.
Unlike the last meeting when you didn't bring water, and I knew we weren't going to have a meeting. I'm back, as one of the movies said. I'm not sure whether that's good news or bad news. I still haven't got through the 16 greatest fairy tales ever told by Jeremiah Jednak. I'll come back to those piecemeal during the year. But I would like to second what Ms. Degnan indicated about the number of people who are calling in. In fact, I filed an Oprah request to find out the number of council people who had called in, how many times they had called in, and where they are calling in from. It appears we tracked the first two pieces of information, but we don't track the third one. So I would like to know when I get my Oprah request filled, I'd like each of the council people who have called in on an absent basis tell us where they were when they were calling in.
But Mr. Waters, you do understand that like that's not a requirement for a public record. I'm assuming that there's not a public record that exists for.
Well, we can always have a resolution or an ordinance.
No, I agree. I'm just saying that just in the Oprah matter under 47181, I just want to make sure that
it's a public record who calls in, and what time they call in, and how long they're on the phone. So far, it's not a public record as far as I've been able to determine for you to tell me where you're calling in from. I think it's only a courtesy if we get someone calling in.
Is there a record that's created?
4 times from Washington, D.C., for instance.
Oh,
to know that.
Yeah.
So you're just giving them the minutes? Okay.
Yeah, we have caller ID here, so we should know where they're calling in from. Pretty simple. If somebody's commented on our admin code again, it's something that periodically comes up every other meeting or so. And we occasionally address it by saying we have a need to update the online version of our admin code, which we know is not very up to date. But I think at the same time that we have our online version updated, we need to take a look at bringing our code into either conformity or known opposition to any other statutes and regulations. So we avoid some of the nitpicking that we've gone through in the past. I'm glad to see our security costs are also going down with the reduced presence of our blue team, our police presence now that the rabble doesn't appear to be so hostile for whatever reason. And lastly, I'd just like to ask Councilwoman Abramson, what kind of drugs does she think I'm on? I think that general comment was very unprofessional coming from a council person. Residents, I think, can be excused by virtue of their frustration in listening to some of the comments. We tend to be a little snarky at times, but I don't think that's a professional act by someone who was elected by X number of people in the township. If you disagree with me, I'd be happy to have that conversation at length with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Mrs. Salberg?
Lisa Salberg, 10 Bergen Hill. First of all, I want to acknowledge that it is 2 days before the passing of Mike Datchison, and pretty much all of the council members have shown courtesy and respect warranting such a situation, except 2. And that says a lot more about you than it does about him. So today I want to read from the opinion page of the Citizen, and I want to make sure this gets into public record, and I do hope that the clerk includes the entirety of this, and I can provide a copy if need be, to ensure that it is part of the permanent public record of Rockaway Township. Wednesday, August 7th, 2019, editorial titled, "Enough is Enough." You all have copies. If you want to read along with me, it's fine by me. All without exception of the local municipal governments we cover, and there are a lot of them, for the most part, operate smoothly and efficiently. Yes, there is some partisan bickering, sometimes, and sometimes there's even sharp disagreement. Never, ever, ever, however, have we witnessed anything in nearly 30 years like what is going on from week to week in Rockaway Township. It is beyond reprehensible. Our simple advice, if we could boil it down, follow the advice of Township Attorney John Yachafano. He knows the law. He's been doing this a long, long time. And we have always found him to be extremely knowledgeable with a vast database of knowledge of how things are properly and improperly done, amassed over the years. We have reached the point where the council fiddles and argues while members of the public wait for the meeting to commence. We have never seen anything like this. Other towns cringe at what is going on in Rockaway Township. We know it because we've heard it. We're simply at a lack of anything else to recommend at this point. A resignation by some council members seems unlikely at this point, although Victor Palumbo did step down, paving the way for new council majority more aligned with Mayor Puzio. We agree with what we agree with what the mayor is trying to do with the township, which is basically get things moving again. Is anything getting done at all to benefit the residents? Anything? Are the only ones benefiting from the constant strife and lawsuits and countersuits the attorneys representing the various elected officials? Does the Supreme Court really need to be Superior Court really need to be clogged with these frivolous claims? Is it all really worth it? How did we come to this? And how, for the sake of Rockaway Township, which looks ridiculous to other surrounding towns, we've heard it, believe us, does it get resolved? Will it take resignations? Will it take recalls? Is there enough time to wait for the next election? And then we have Councilwoman Patricia Abrahamson using her phone to record the angry residents. Sorry. It was really funny to watch. Don't they have the right to be angry? They see nothing but petty bickering and clearly a refusal for the work to be done to get this, excuse me, let me read that line again. They see nothing but petty bickering and a clear refusal to work together for the sake of getting anything done. Is it any wonder why residents are ticked off? Is it? Maybe Abrahamson should turn the phone to the dais and play it back later for the council to watch. Is this really what Rockaway Township wants to put out there? Is this really who we are? We've written again and again in this column about how outrageous, childish, and downright abhorrent the behavior is. Most from what we've seen point the fingers at Council President Tucker Kelly, Councilman Jedniak, and Abrahamson. Perhaps it's time for them to resign. Nothing good is coming from this. Absolutely nothing. And it has to change. It's gone on for 2 years now, and that is way too long.
Who authored that?
Thank you, Mrs. Salver. I have Mrs. Copel. Regina. Was she here? I mean, she signed in. She's the last one to sign in. She did? Okay. This is the only individual that signed on here. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Then come up to the microphone.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Richard Honorevoli. I live at 11 Leah Place. I understand my name's on the agenda tonight to be appointed to the zoning board. Most of you don't know me, and I don't know most of you. I've not been active in politics, nor have I really attended meetings before. So I just wanted to let you know that I've been a resident of the township since 1992. I've coached sports youth sports in soccer and Little League when my children were younger. I spent about a dozen years as a Boy Scout leader in both Cub Pack 113, 213 and Troop 213, and that ended around 2014. So for the last 5 years, I've really had a little more time on my hands, and I thought I would offer my services and time as a member of the zoning board if you so choose. I'm a self-employed attorney. I have my office in Lake Hiawatha, section of Parsippany, and I've been there since 1988. Thank you for the opportunity.
And where do you reside, so I can put on the record?
11,
What area?
11 Leah, L-E-A Place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I had, or earlier before the meeting started, I had conversed with Mayor Puzio. We have a few closed sessions that we have attorneys that are here for. We have one for Morris Common. We have one for the litigation, Mr. Puzio versus the council. And we also have litigation of another matter with the Environmental Commission. So since we have professionals that are here on the clock, I had asked the mayor maybe if we can just shift the meeting a little bit, put them ahead of the ordinances to introduce so we can get them out of here in a timely fashion. I think we both concluded, Mr. Mayor, that two of them we anticipate to be pretty quick.
Sure.
And then maybe one of them might be a little bit lengthy, but hopefully not too long. So I just want to make that mention to the public and see if it's okay and if there's an understanding to do that.
Do you want a motion?
Well, I'm just making the public a part of it so that they have that. So with that being said, I'm going to...
1 second, Council President.
Yeah.
I'd like him to make a motion to remove from the closed session the Schmidt vs. Township of Rockaway docket number MRSL-902-19 for discussion.
Second.
Where?
That was Mr. Sackett made the motion. Mr. Jackson, the second. Is that correct, Mr. Jackson? Any discussion?
Council President, can you clarify the motion?
Yeah, I don't understand what he's saying.
Mr. Sackett, could you read the motion again?
I'd like to make a motion to remove from the closed session Schmidt vs. Township of Rockaway docket number MRS-L-902-19 for discussion.
Did you hear that, Mr. Genio?
Yes, Council President, it sounds like he's referring to a consent agenda item, but it also sounds like he's seeking to amend the closed session resolution. Can we clarify which he's requesting?
Which resolution is he talking about?
Jeremy, we were going to go into closed session now to speed up some of the attorneys that are here. So that's what the motion was for, to remove one of the items from it.
To move it for later, John, or taking it off for the entire?
I'm taking it off of tonight.
Did you understand that, Mr. Genio?
Council President, my understanding is that we have one closed session resolution. Am I incorrectly looking at the agenda?
3 matters on it, though.
It's one closed session resolution with 3 different matters to be discussed.
So then it sounds like what the council member is requesting is actually an amendment to remove an item from the closed session resolution.
Well, that's not what he said.
No.
That is not what he said, and that's why I'm asking for clarification, Council President.
Okay, I'm making the motion to amend the closed session resolution.
Second.
What is the amendment, Council President?
Please.
I'm making a motion to amend the closed session to remove Schmidt vs. Township of Rockaway, docket number MRS-L-902-19.
Second.
Council President, the code requires that that motion be reduced to writing.
Councilman Jeniak, for Mr. Sackett to simply write it down versus what he commerced, he's going to write it and give to the clerk. Mr. Sackett, you can write it formally so she can have it. So the text of what your motion is clarified.
The motion is on the record, Council President. There's no basis for asking Councilman Sackett to render the motion in writing. I'm quite sure the clerk captured the motion when he stated it.
Do you need it in writing, or do you think you have it?
Council President, the basis is the code which requires all motions to be reduced to writing.
It's true. I've been doing it.
Do you know the code, Councilman Jeniak, real quick?
They are reduced to writing by the clerk, Council President.
But the clerk is going to have it in writing. I don't think it mentions about who has to submit it in writing.
That's right.
Correct. It simply must be reduced to writing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the clerk...
Make a roll.
Please, everybody. The clerk is in a process of writing down verbatim what Councilman Sackett had requested.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, with that motion in a second, was there any discussion? Nobody on the side?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering why.
Yeah, that would be Mr. Sackett, is there a reason why? We're in current litigation. Mr. Bell had previously wanted to have a closed session back in, we have your email with the notice, Mr. Bell, that you were requesting us to have a closed session back in July on this particular issue that we had with the matter.
I believe that we requested that you meet with the council, but if you choose not to, it's a very nice thing. That's okay.
No, I understand. But I think, John, what we have here is that we have current litigation, and moving forward, we haven't had an opportunity to talk to the attorney who was representing that. And that's what the closed session was in reference to. There's a potential appeal. There's something about some funds. I can't go into some deep content about it from what we received from Mr. Bell, but I think there's more that's taking place that we're not aware of, that it would be nice to have that.
I think it's an administrative, I'm going to let the attorney speak, but I think it's, right now, we're not at that point. It's it's under the administrative function. It hasn't developed to that point where it needs input from the council.
Well, I think there was an offer of a settlement that the council was a part of. The ones that...
No. Council President, Judge Minkowitz, among the several rulings that he made, specifically noted that the council plays no role in the management of litigation. That's not a direct quote from his opinion, but it's as close as I can get without the opinion right in front of me. Motion's on the floor. There has been discussion.
I'm not done with the discussion, though, Mr. Yachafano, but thank you, though. I'm just going to look up something real quick.
Council President?
Can you hold on a second, please, Councilman? Power to compromise under 26.3B. The township attorney may, with the approval of the mayor and council, be empowered to compromise, settle, or adjust any rights, claims, demands, or cause of action in favor or against the township. It says it clearly right here in the code. I thought just having a simple conversation in closed session about the current litigation 902, especially when it's dealing with fees and the potential additional cost that may accrue to the direction that we're going right now, I just want to be afforded to have some information about it. I don't think that's telling Mr. Bell what to do. We're just trying to learn what's going on. We have currently right now, we have two other matters dealing with litigation that seem not to be an issue to have on closed session for discussion with the council. So So why select one over the other when they're all concerning litigation that's currently going on? And even the Morris comments, I believe, is about settlement. Is there a reason, Mr. Sackett, why you don't want to talk about the litigation that we have going on right now?
Motion on the floor.
Well, it's discussion. I haven't closed discussion.
No comment.
Mr. Jackson, is there a reason?
I have no comment.
Clerk, please do a roll.
Council President,
Mr. Janiak, I'm sorry, I forgot you. Go ahead.
thank you. Council President, if we're to believe that the council has no role with regard to litigation, perhaps you could remove the entire closed session from tonight's agenda. We can address this at a future meeting and go back to the other business we have on the agenda. Would shorten our meeting tonight.
Yeah, that's true.
He can make a motion. Wherever he is.
Well, we're in a motion right now to amend.
Understood, but Council President, you can exercise your discretion and simply remove the closed session resolution.
I have to be quite honest with you. I'm interested in talking to the attorneys to see where we're at so we can move forward, to be quite honest with you, on all the matters that we had. You know, to be selective on one closed session that is concerning a sum of money, I thought it would be very necessary to communicate with the attorney representing them. And then now to have you want to remove everything from the closed session and Mr. Sackett amending it, I think that's a bad decision. However, there is a motion on the floor, there's a second to it. And, you know, if there's no more further discussion, I have to go for the roll. Is there anything else, Mr. Jeniak?
Thank you.
This is for the amendment.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedinak?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
No.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
President Kelly?
No. I have 5 yeses, 4 noes. Motion to amend is carried. So the current closed session resolution is going to read R19-167, resolution authorizing executive closed session in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6, ETS sequence to discuss pending litigation in the matters of Michael Guzio versus Rockaway Township Council, ET all, docket number MRS L 37819, Morris Commons LLC versus Rockaway Township, ET all, docket number MRS L 3271-07. So, Mr. Mayor, like our conversation prior to the meeting, are you still okay to move forward to have closed session moved so we can expedite and get some of these professionals out of here?
Sure, it shouldn't take that long. I don't expect, how long do you think that we will be in closed session?
You call these closed sessions, not me, so I don't know. You might know more of the content than I do.
It's in the resolution.
Okay.
It's come out after 45 minutes.
Well, we talked before, we thought it was going to be a little bit less.
It's not in the resolution, Helen. Is it in the resolution, Helen?
It says that the closed session is supposed to last about 60 minutes, but that was for all 3 matters.
Correct, so we can shorten it.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
No, I know. I mean, I know the comply under 13.
We can tell the public that we'll be back in 60 minutes, one way or another. If we have to continue, then we'll
Come out and inform them and whatnot, and then it would be open to the public within, I don't even have it, 90 days, we have it? 120 days?
And once again, the purpose of this is, we pay the professionals per hour. So it is in the benefit of the town to shave, some time off their attendance here.
We need to read the entirety of the...
No, I have it. I just wanted to make sure where we're at right now. And I have to read it as the amendment in its entirety too. So at this time, we are moving the meeting, we're moving closed session before the ordinances to introduce. And it's going to be Resolution R19-167, resolution authorizing an executive closed session in accordance with the New Jersey Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6, ET sequence to discuss pending litigation in the matters of Michael Puzio versus Rockaway Township Council, EP Law, docket number MRS L378, and Morris Commons LLC versus Rockaway Township, ET All, docket number MRS L327107. Whereas the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act generally requires the meetings to open to the public, and whereas the Open Public Meeting Act further provides that a public body may exclude the public from a portion of the meeting at which the public body discusses items enumerated in the Open Public Meeting Act at NJSA 10:4-12B, which items are recognized as requiring confidentiality. And whereas it is necessary and appropriate for the Rockaway Township Council to discuss certain matters in a meeting not open to the public, consistent with NJSA 10:4-12B, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of Rockaway Township, Morris County, New Jersey as follows. The Rockaway Township Council shall immediately hold an executive session from which the public should be excluded. 2, the general nature of the subject discussed at said executive sessions shall be as follows. Pending litigation in the matters of Mayor Michael Puzio versus Rockaway Township Council, ET All, docket number MRS L37819, Morris Commons LLC versus Rockaway Township, ET All, docket number MRS, please, L327107. 3, the minutes of the executive session shall be made available for disclosure to the public, consistent with NJSA 10:4-13. Any items which are subject to the closed session discussion are resolved and the reasons for confidentiality no longer exist, at which present is anticipated to be approximately 30 days or to the next scheduled council meeting. In the event that reasons for confidentiality exist beyond such time, the public will be advised appropriately. It is anticipated that the town council will be in closed session on stated matters for 60 minutes. In the event that the closed session must extend beyond 60 minutes, the council will recess the closed session, and the public will be advised of an estimated time required to complete the closed session, or whether the closed session will be continued at a subsequent council meeting. 5, following the closed session, the council may take action on matters which is the subject of closed session. With that being said, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Jackson.
Can we leave the public in the main room here?
Yeah, absolutely. Jackson and Quinn Holcomb.
Thank you.
Please the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Judnak?
Abstain.
Councilmember Smith? Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Newton?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
Council President Kelly?
Yes. 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Yeah, I can't count.
Yeah. Motion carries.
Jeremy, we'll call you from the other room. Bob, are you recording?
Bob, we getting the record? We're still waiting on some other people, Jeremy.
Okay, you would just note for the record that I wasn't contacted for the closed session. That would be appreciated.
Yes.
Dave, my chocolate.
session for... We have the ordinance introduced first, right?
Yes, she's
You can save it later.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go back on the record. It is 9:13 p.m. We're going to start back from moving it around. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Number 11, we have ordinances to introduce.
Do we need to make a motion?
We have to, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Kind of a motion to
So moved.
Second.
get out of closed session. Jackson on the motion, Mr. Quinn on the second. Clerk to the roll. Sorry. Yeah.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
Abstain.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes, I have 8 yeses, 1 abstention, motion carries. We're back in, open to the public for closed session.
Council President?
Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Based on the advice we just received, I'd like to make a motion for the council to accept the settlement offer tendered by the mayor and direct our attorney to execute a stipulation of dismissal with prejudice.
Second.
Discussion. Anyway? You know, Mr. Jackson, I do recognize the motion. I think we do have a small glitch right now. For whatever reason, there was an error that Mr. Jeniak was not part of the closed session. I think we might have a flawed closed session. It's not something that I was just informed of it now, so.
Can I ask, is there such a thing as a flawed closed session?
Well, first of all, someone should state the reason that Mr. Jedniak was not phoned into the closed session.
Right.
By yourself.
What did we do? How'd that happen?
I never have my cell phone on me, so I had no ability to make a phone call to begin with. Normally, another council member calls him. A mistake was made, he wasn't called.
Oh.
It wasn't intentional.
Okay.
But nobody realized it.
Yeah, but
Can we be clear as to why Mr. Jedniak was not called?
Ms. Clipperton just stated that.
It was an inadvertent error. She didn't have her cell phone and didn't tell anybody else to call him.
Council President, why wasn't the phone on the wall used? We use that typically for closed session for those needing to dial in.
The council president,
We have used it.
Well, a while ago, a long time ago, yeah. We have.
well, if the council is concerned, they can make a motion to go back into closed session. We can recapitulate what is said. I personally have no concern about it. But if the council is concerned in any respect, they can make a motion to go to reconvene in closed session. We can recapitulate the statements made by Mr. Mr. Diener, and go from there. But I am not concerned about the evident inadvertent error to telephone Mr. Jedniak, which of course just emphasizes the problems with remote attendance at council meetings.
With that being said, Mr. Yetrafano, the attorney for the council is not here to go back into closed session. I could try to reach Mr. Diener on his phone to see if he could come back to do that, but I don't think it would be fair for this council to go into closed session again without representation, especially you're having an opinion.
We didn't give any opinion, Mr. Kelly. We would not give any opinion.
No, just now, Mr. Yetrafano, you're saying that there's no violation. And you want to redo the closed session?
No, I didn't say we want to redo it. I didn't say we recommended to redo it. It is an option subject to the discretion of the council, Mr. Kelly. Personally, I'm not concerned about the inadvertent error that resulted in Mr. Jedniak not being present by telephone in the closed session.
But Mr. Jedniak did not hear his representation during closed session to go into this.
I understand that.
And how do we know he's alone? How do we know he doesn't
Bingo.
Does he have a sure note that no one else is listening in? If I'm catching that session, how do I know someone's not with Jeremy? He's right. Or Councilman Jenny?
Why couldn't he make a phone call?
All that
time went by and he couldn't call in?
We're talking to everybody that was there.
Perhaps we could poll the members of the council to see who Mr. Jedniak called when he noted that he was not being included in the closed session.
Come on, we're not stupid.
Yeah, but I have my phone on.
In any event, our opinion is that the closed session is not flawed under these circumstances.
What was the motion?
You waited a half hour to let you know that he wasn't.
The motion was to accept the settlement.
Chris, did you need to read the motion responsibility by law now?
I did have it written down.
Press, please. Have somebody that has an here with the council. Mr. Jackson, in all fairness, we don't have anything.
Perhaps, Council President, you could ask Mr. Jedniak if he tried to call any members of the governing body when he figured out he was not included in the closed session.
I think he was waiting on a phone call, as he had stated here.
Why don't we ask him that?
Mr. Jackson, I do see what you have. We do have a little bit of an issue. Obviously, none of us have made any mention or comment about that. The clerk made it aware to us now when we came back into open session. Can you wait until the next meeting that we have to do that?
I think based on the council's advice, I'm fine with moving ahead with the vote on the motion I made and Mr. Sackett seconded.
Council President, can we address all the other business we already have on the agenda and come back to this?
No, you have a motion.
We have a motion on the floor.
You do have a motion on the floor with that. I just think what I'm concerned is disenfranchising. It's fair. You're depriving somebody of legal advice in closed session.
Did it care that much, he'd be here.
Excuse me, could I ask a question, please? Would this be in any violation of OPMA? Because I don't want any more violations of open space.
Mr. Waters, please stop. You don't have to. Sarcasm is recognized. I appreciate it. Thank you.
First of all, for the point of clarity, I would ask that the motion be amended to read that it's a motion to settle pending litigation, Michael Puzio versus Rockaway Township at all, docket number MRSL 378-19. If you would accept that, Mr. Jackson, that amendment, just to be specific.
Yes.
And the settlement is a dismissal without prejudice.
Yes. Ms. Smith has a question, though, I believe, for you. Ms. Smith has a question for you.
Oh, you asked it. I asked it, I didn't answer.
I don't think they knew you were asking. She wanted to know if doing this with him not being in closed session was a violation.
I would indicate, I would think not, because it depends on the vote. From the standpoint of the OPMA, there is nothing that is in the OPMA that deals with someone calling in and an inadvertent phone call. The statute would be silent as to something like that. There is no specific statutory section that I'm aware of that would allow or that would designate that whatever happened here this evening, this inadvertent error, to be considered a violation of the OPMA.
Well, under OPMA, it does allow to have electronic communication, whether it's phone, internet, under, I think it's 10.4 So, here we are, we have somebody that has that, was told that he was going to be called when we went into closed session.
You're in charge of the meeting.
I'm not in charge of getting the individual.
You're in charge of bringing the meeting to order and including the closed session.
Yeah.
Did you remember to call?
Council President, it's your meeting. Can we go through the rest of the business and come back to this, please?
I don't think, Mr. Jeniak, I don't think it's going to change Mr. Jackson's mind. I mean, this has already been a collaboration before the meeting even commenced of what was going to take place. And we have individuals that will
Keep making your accusations, Mr. Kelly, just like your stuff isn't planned.
dealing with the representation of Mr. Jackson and the other three that had their own attorney, and then tonight they're waiving that privilege not to have that attorney. So given a conflict, potentially maybe participating in this vote at this current moment. But the motion that they have on the floor, and it's seconded by Mr. Sackett, are not going to recognize that you were disenfranchised of being part of the closed session that you were told that you were going to be a part of and be called to participate with that. And no one said anything of it until after the meeting had ended and we came back on the record.
And why not, Council President? Why not?
You know what?
When all of you sitting up there have Mr. Jedniak's cell phone in your cell phone.
I don't. My phone was off, Mr. Fonzie, so I didn't get a call from anybody until I turned it back on. So.
There's a motion pending. There should be a roll call on the motion.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
Abstain.
What? You were there. Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
President Kelly?
No. We have 5 yeses, 3 noes, 1 abstention. Motion. 2 noes. I'm sorry. 2 noes. 3. 2. Mrs. Smith. Then you have 3 others. Jenny X said no. Yeah. So it's 3 noes, 1 abstention, and 5 yeses. Motion carries.
Unbelievable.
Can I go into ordinances introduced now, gentlemen? Or do you have any other motions you want to bring on the floor?
Not yet.
Nothing pre-game? Ordinance 19-18, an ordinance of the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, providing various capital improvements for the Township of Rockaway. This I'm going to move to old business, just that we have some discussions on that.
This is referring to the capital bond ordinance that we've had that's failed on several occasions. So just are going to have some discussion on that into old business. We're going to move that.
What is that, 1918?
Yeah, we're going to move that to old business, so we can address that. Number 2, we have ordinance -1919. And this is an ordinance of the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for the acquisition of computers and networking equipment for the Department of Information and Technology, including all structures, work equipment, and materials necessary, therefore incidental thereto, from the Reserve for Information Technology acquisition and appropriation of $100,000. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Second.
Mrs. Smith and Mr. Quinn on the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Abstain.
President Kelly?
Yes. We have 7 yeses and no, 1 abstention. Motion carries. We have number 12 is the consent agenda. And I ask that we have number 23, resolution R19. I'm sorry, it is on, I'm sorry. I put it towards the phone so Jenny can participate too. Sorry about that.
And aren't you sharing one?
We are, but it's
Yeah.
okay. Number 23 would be R19-169, to move that aside. And I'll read the consent agenda as following. This is all for a vote. It's going to be R19-144, R19-145, R19-146, R19-147, R19-160, I'm sorry, 148, R19-149, R-19-150, R-19-151, R-19-154, R-19-155, R-19-156, R-19-157, R-19-158, R-19-159, R-19-160, R-19-161, R-19-162, R-19-163, R-19-164, R-19-165, R-19-166, R-19-168. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Smith on the second, Mr. Quinn on the motion. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. We have number 23, which is R-19-169. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Sackett?
I'll second.
Mr. Jackson on the second. And this was something that came from administration? This last one we have here, 169?
169, yes.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, please do the roll.
Council President?
Yeah, we
Is there
had
any
some discussion, right?
Yeah, I'd like to just say one thing. I don't know why any elected official would take the opportunity for the taxpayers to vote on how to spend their money. Want to take that away from them. I just don't understand that.
Agreed.
I think every year we pass the budget and vote on the budget, we're telling the taxpayers how to spend their money to some level.
Say that again, Mr. Jackson?
No.
Wow. He said every year at the budget.
President,
Go ahead, Mr. Jeniak.
has the clerk's office taken any steps since the motion was originally passed to notice and affect the referendum, which is the subject of the motion?
Mr. Jeniak, could you repeat that again, please?
Question was for the clerk's office, Council President, so whether they've taken any steps regarding the motion that was passed in May to effectuate the referendum.
I've had several discussions with the I've had a few conversations with Mrs. Seeger about the process. I've had several discussions about the matter with Mr. Kelly. I don't understand what you expected me to do.
Isn't there a process to actually cause the question to be placed on the ballot for referendum?
It was discussed and voted on at a budget hearing, and everybody approved.
I was informed that the administration was to assemble the resolution like they've done it.
Oh, I thought he wanted to know, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what he wanted to know.
Mrs. Seeger, you didn't do anything on this, right?
I would like to ask Mr. Achafano to explain this resolution on the deficiencies of their motion from the May 28th meeting.
The primary deficiency with the motion, and it wasn't a resolution, it was a motion made without prior notification to anyone at the council meeting of May 28th, 2019.
I can't hear you either.
Okay, I'll start again. First of all, it was not a resolution. It was a motion made without prior notice at the council meeting of May 28th by Council Vice President Abrahamson, second by Council Member Smith. The motion as stated was contrary to the statute NJSA 19:37-1. In order to have a valid resolution or motion, preferably a resolution, for a public referendum on an election ballot, the resolution or motion itself must state the precise language that the public is being asked to vote on. The motion as stated did not do that. The motion simply stated, let's have a referendum on the ballot concerning the expenditures. That's what it was left at.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
This was done in April. You waited till now to tell us that?
It was done on May 28th.
All right. May
And you'll
28th.
pardon my lateness in advising you, but if I were to have responses ready for all the non-noticed motions and resolutions that have been introduced by the former council majority over the past year and a half, I would quit the practice of law and become a Svengali.
That was a good one.
Mr. Yachafano, was there any contest or any filing to void that action at all by chance? I mean, it's been beyond 45 days since that had taken place. Was there any challenge to that motion whatsoever in the court?
I'm not sure. There's no 45-day rule when it comes to the council vacating its prior action by motion or resolution.
So there was no challenge of it whatsoever, of the motion that took place by a member of the public or anybody?
It's not an ordinance, Mr. Kelly.
I'm sorry?
It's not an ordinance.
I understand that, but it was something that took place at a meeting, and any action that took place at a meeting, one can challenge though, correct?
And that is, I believe, what this resolution constitutes.
Right, but what is the time frame that one would have to challenge that action?
There is none.
There's no limitations on it?
No, Mr. Kelly, there is not.
So in form of a prerogative right, there's not a 45-day rule?
You're referring to a time limit for filing a court action, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about here.
Thank you, Mr. Adjourn.
Council President,
Mr. Jeniak?
what is the deadline for placing an item to referendum on the ballot?
August 16th.
81 days. It's 81
3 days from today.
That's correct. Isn't that what you informed us, Mrs. Seeger?
I didn't inform you.
I did.
The statute says 81 days, Mr. Kelly. That's, so whatever that translates into.
Yeah, is it the 16th of August?
I believe it's the 16th.
So, Mr. Adjourn, if this was something that wasn't correct, why are we rescinding it then? Why would we rescind an action that you're saying is null and void anyways from the action that took place on the 28th?
Because it remains on the books, if, as it were, as an incompetent document unless and until it's corrected by subsequent action of the council.
Okay.
But this resolution, as it presently stands, subject to the vote that's going to be, the motion as it presently stands, subject to the vote that will be taken tonight on the resolution, could not have resulted in a referendum because it's incompetent as a matter of law to require the county clerk to put it on the ballot as a referendum to vote on.
But this is a motion to rescind or vacate that original motion from the 28th.
No, it's a resolution to vacate the motion that was made on May 28th. Without prior notice to anyone.
Any questions, Mr. Jeniak?
Council President, is tonight the first time that the clerk's office was informed of any deficiency with the May 28th motion?
Did you receive any of the information at all?
When I was given the resolution, I think I was told that there was a deficiency.
In verbally or writing?
Not in writing.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Jeniak?
By whom?
I believe it was a conversation with Mrs. Seeger.
Did the clerk's office request a resolution in a form that would have been considered valid?
Yeah. We could have, if there was a deficiency, we could have corrected it within a time frame.
It has been.
I mean, just a simple question. Was there a reason why there was a delay to give us this information? How long did you know about it?
Came to my attention concerning the specific statutory infirmity with the resolution. I'm not even sure, since it was, I've stopped calling it a resolution. I'm not even sure when I saw a transcribed version of the motion or if I ever saw one. It's probably in the minutes of the May 28th meeting somewhere.
It was in the minutes. Does he receive the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the minutes that you received.
And I can't honestly tell you when I received the minutes of that meeting. I know they were not on for approval tonight. I don't recall reading it in the meeting minutes, so that's all I can tell you, Mr. Kelly.
Okay, and those minutes have passed for the 28th meeting.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Higgins.
Respectfully, Mr. Yanchapano, how many times has this been brought to a discussion? Do you have any idea on the dais since May 28th? Do you have any idea how many times this has been brought up here for another vote? And it's never been brought to our attention about any deficiencies? Do you have any idea at all how many times?
I'm not sure why I should have an idea.
Because you attend the meetings with us, and it's not a new it's not a new motion and/or vote that has happened. It wasn't only in May, is what I'm trying to point out.
Are you telling me, Council Vice President, that the motion was remade sometime after May?
This was put on the agenda more than once since then.
It was not on the agenda previously. This is the first time it's been on this
Wasn't it
first
on
time
as
this
a,
resolution
capital
has been on the agenda.
No,
More than
what
once.
we had was when we were dealing with budgets and Mrs. Palmieri being in the
That's what I'm
presence
talking
at the time,
about, I think.
We had made an
More than
agreement
once.
of the council to put it on referendum, is what we had. Mrs. Seeger, I don't believe you were there.
I was not.
No.
Then moving forward, because we did it by like a straw vote, or we all concurred, I think 6 of us, Mrs. Seeger was not satisfied with that, so then we did it by way of motion. She never said that the motion was deficient or...
Never asked me if it was deficient.
You didn't inform us that it was deficient, now you are.
So, but my question is,
And I will add, Council President,
I'll
that
save
like
another
many things, the township ordinance requiring the township attorneys to approve all ordinances and resolutions and presumably motions was not honored in this case as well.
But there was a motion that was made by Mr. Jackson in regards to the settlement on that. Did you prepare that for him?
The motion as to the settlement, I don't understand the language.
No, I'm just asking him. He said that he prepares all of them, and I'm just asking if he prepared it for you.
So I'm answering the question. If you would have watched me in there, I was writing, those are almost the words that Mr. Denninger said. I was writing it down as he was saying it.
No, I was just asking him. Mr. Denninger's not the town attorney.
I think that's why Mr. Perone corrected what I had written.
Is there anything else, Mr. Genia?
No.
Anybody else for discussion?
no, I don't know, no.
Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak,
No.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Councilmember Sackett,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson,
No.
President Kelly.
No. I have 5 yeses, 4 noes. Motion does not carry. Unfortunately, in this, Mr. Iatrofano, since we weren't provided by written notice of this from a member, it would need 2/3 of the vote in order to pass that.
No, it does not, Mr. Kelly.
It says it right here in Robert's Rules, though.
Mr. Kelly, the motion carries.
Given previous notice is best, especially when the issue is controversial, to give previous notice to members of request, then a notice to be included in a letter sent, excuse me, in the letter sent to the membership notifying them of a meeting, a member can give notice orally or previous meeting. You heard Mrs. Seeger say that the administration was the one that provided this notice, not a member of the council. To give previous noting at a meeting, a member states, Mr. President, I give rise to a previous notice that at the next meeting I will make a motion to rescind the action that we give a donation to a Fourth Amendment President Night Banquets, an example. So in this case, because no previous notice was given, the motion requires 2/3 vote to adopt, or a majority of the entire membership, which is the least to obtain. So in this particular case, to rescind something, I did ask, Mrs. Seeger told me the administration did it, not a council member. To rescind the motion that took place on the 28th, we would need 2/3 vote. Now, if Mr. Jackson or
You
Mr.
asked me
Sackett-
who sent it to put on the agenda. I did.
No.
But you didn't ask me if someone asked me to do it.
Well, you didn't put any of that in writing or not, so a member would actually do it. But in this case, we need 2/3 vote to pass that motion.
The
Now,
council received notice of this resolution
not from a
on
member
the
of the
agenda,
council, Mr. Iatrofano. It clearly says it right here in Robert's Rules. So when it works in your favor, well, they did it last time too, Mrs. Degman, and it applied and worked for them. So the motion doesn't carry. We're going for council appointments, number 13. We have Zoning Board of Adjustment for a full member, Richard Honorevoli, I'm sorry. Do we do one at a time, or do you want to do a all one shot?
I think we can do them all, if everybody.
Does everyone want to do one at a time, or? Okay. So we have the Zoning Board of Adjustment, full member. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Abrahamson on the motion. Second for Mrs. Smith. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
No.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No.
Councilmember Jednak?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Jackson?
No.
Councilmember Noon?
No.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. So unfortunately, we have 5 noes and 4 yeses. Motion does not carry for Mr. Honorelli. That's a shame, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Number 2, we have firefighters. We have Timothy Vassie, I said it correct? We have number 2 is Timothy Bloomfield, and then number 3, we have Dennis Crothers. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Mrs. Smith?
Second.
Mr. Freelander, a second. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. We have 9 yeses, motion carries. We have, number 3 is EMS. We have Emily Schoenberg and Brianna Seawick. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Mr. Jackson?
I'll second.
Mrs. Smith on the second. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jednak?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. We have 9 yeses, 0 abstentions, 0 noes, motion carries. Congratulations to those. We already did, I'm sorry, we have number 4, Board of Assessment Commissioners. Have a motion?
I'll motion.
Abrahamson in the motion. I'll second it. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
No.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No.
Councilmember Jednak?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Jackson?
No.
Councilmember Noon?
No.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Can I say one thing? This is the Sewer Assessment Committee, correct?
Correct.
Sewer Assessment, it's left off the agenda. Okay, yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. We have 5 noes and 4 yeses, motion fails. Mr. Quinn, you didn't think you were in conflict of voting on that?
No, I am not.
Okay.
Council President,
Mr. Jenny,
why might there be a conflict with Councilmember Quinn?
he is a recipient of the sewer that's going to be assessed that he hasn't paid.
Yes, I believe there is too.
I think there's a $16,000 to $20,000 amount that may be collected by.
Again, that's what you say. This says the Board of Assessment Commissioners.
For the sole purpose of the sewer assessment.
That's not what's on this agenda list.
No.
Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
How did that happen, that it's not on the agenda, the sewer
Because the board
assessment?
is actually called the Board of Assessment Commissioners. It's not a sewer separate committee. It's Board of Assessment Commissioners for the purpose of the sewer assessment
Okay.
evaluation.
Yeah, Mr. Quinn.
It's in the backup
Yeah, he's
documents,
been informed
correct?
of that.
I think I read that. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I had moved the introduction of ordinance 1918, I'm sorry, into new business. And we've had a lot of discussions and some difference of opinion on certain stuff with regard to this issue at hand. I'm sorry? Yeah. So, you want to say something, Mrs. Abrahamson?
No, I got the two mixed up before. This is the one I was talking about that was here several times, at least 4 or 5 times.
This is solely spinning around the basketball courts that we have, which is the monies that's been in question of the $500,000 plus, where we originally had the bond ordinance for 2.2 million, and then it was 2.7, and every single time it's been failed, because we need 6 votes to pass it. So I know that Mr. Jackson has had some interest in it, and I didn't know if, Mr. Jackson, if you had some stuff that you wanted to say, or had some questions on it from when we talked about this court and this improvement to Peterson Field. I know you took some photos recently of some grass coming through some of the cracks and some of the asphalt in the area. I'm assuming it was the basketball area. I did go over there and look. I didn't see any of that, or in the same with the photos. Maybe they got taken care of after the fact.
Well, I think a township worker weed whacked them.
Yeah.
On the basketball court. I think I made my viewpoint pretty clear in the meetings. I sent a couple emails to Ms. Clipperton to distribute to the council, which I believe she did. My viewpoint is that the basketball courts need to be renovated, and I'm more than willing to talk about, what's needed around a scoreboard or bleachers or whatever, but, they need to be renovated. I believe that the playground does, the tennis courts, they're widely used by the public, and that's my feeling. And I've made it very clear, so I'm not sure if you want me to reiterate, but...
No, I don't. I mean, okay. We had some conversation when we were talking about it. I don't know if you had an opportunity from our last conversation that we had back in June, where we were, I had gone out to the other towns. I don't know if you had an opportunity to go to the other towns or...
So, in my viewpoint, that it's a very different...
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were still talking.
And dealing with one of the rec professionals over in Randolph, and they had shown me a breakdown of what they had spent. And I know that you thought that because we needed some fencing surrounding the field, the basketball court, which we do have right now, their total cost was $102,000 for 2 regulation courts, with completely demolishing the original courts that were there, constructing it, doing new sub base, doing a new coating on top of that, new equipment all the way around, and they came in at a far lesser cost than what we were looking to spend at $402,000. And then I believe that your comment was, well, we have 3 courts, but the 3rd court, if I remember, was not going to be regulation size. It was going to be very small. And then you thought that, well, we needed to have fencing, which we currently do have fencing. If we were to double the cost of Randolph and put in 4 courts, we would still be at half the amount of money as what you're looking to spend right now with the basketball court. I don't think anybody is in disagreement in regards to having the courts completed and redone. However, the amount of money that you want to put aside to that, and then you want to vote on this particular introduction of the bond ordinance with all that money without having any discussions or reductions, I just wanted to see what kind of compromise can we do so that we all here can agree upon, since we're not going to agree on the $400,000. The $50,000 for the playground is one thing, and then for the tennis courts, I think it was just a temporary Band-Aid that we're willing to spend $40,000 on to only rip up the courts within a short period of time. So we were just trying to see, where is it that you think that we can save money other than just the scoreboards, which none of the towns had, comparative? Is there a number that you feel that, you know what, we can make this reduction, we can amend this so we can move forward with it? Or are you strictly set on, it's either $402,000 for the basketball courts or nothing?
Can I speak now?
Sure.
Okay. So I think I was pretty clear in my email. I'm not set on spending $400,000 or nothing. I'm not set on spending a scoreboard. I'm more than willing to talk about things we can do differently. I don't think comparing it to Randolph is apples to apples. I think what we were given was a concept plan that needs to be vetted out more. And I just want to move forward with the process. And, you know, I don't disagree with you about the scoreboard. I mean, some people think that just because other towns don't have it doesn't mean we should, but I'm more than willing to look at not having a scoreboard or looking at other ways we can reduce that $400,000. I thought I made that clear in the email, but if I didn't, I apologize.
No, and I understand that, but we have in front of us right now to vote on for the $400,000. And I'm asking you, what is a number that you want to reduce it to based on your analysis and all the work that you've been doing and taking photographs? Where are you coming up with?
I didn't do any analysis. I kind of compared what you listed for Randolph, and I used some common sense and looked at their layout and their design and what we have in our situation. I didn't do a lot of background checking. I took some pictures of the court because there's grass growing in the middle of the court. So I think that's a problem inherent with the court.
We have the same up in Telemark too.
Yeah, well, then maybe we should look at that next, but I'm just saying, that's my point. I think something needs to be done on a permanent basis to fix the courts. I'm not, you know, we could sit down and go through and determine what we think it should cost, and I'd welcome administration putting something out there at a lesser amount.
Well, why don't we then, if that's the case, since Mrs. Ferrante, I know she's had some information, you were very able to receive some information to review. I haven't had an opportunity yet. I have requested several times to get those documents and been declined each time.
Did you request the documents, or did you request to meet with her?
I requested documents.
I didn't request the documents. I requested to meet with her in her office. I wasn't given any documents. I met in the office.
I know, but I mean, I think we can agree. I mean, I have somewhat of a background of that. I can just look at the documents rather than take the time of Mrs. Ferrante.
Ms. Seeger, in a situation like that, would giving out those documents threaten the bid process potentially?
Yes, as it was explained, that Mr. Kelly did have his eyes on those when they were handed out and handed back in.
I had to give them back to you the next morning, Mrs. Seeger, from 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So with that being said, can we then table this to the next meeting in between now and then we can come up with another amounts that we can reduce this so we can maybe move this forward? Because you need 6 votes to pass it.
How does this affect the other bond things that need to be done? I mean, if we wait till the next meeting in September?
You voted no on it 4 times, Mr. Jackson.
I have a
4
question.
times.
If we change the amount, is that a significant change where we couldn't have a second reading if we introduce this as is and do our homework and reduce the amount, Mr. Achapano?
Why can't we just remove that portion to the next meeting and move forward with the rest of the work that needs
I
to
mean,
be
why
done?
can't-
Mr. Achapano?
But I don't understand, Mrs. Seeger.
Question is, if we...
Can I ask you a question? Sure, Mr. Freeland. Let me get her done first.
Change the amount
Yeah.
of the basketball next meeting, is that a significant change? Where,
Substantive?
yes, substantive, where it would affect it if we're lowering the amount?
Just because the money's in there doesn't mean that we have to spend it. That's kind of, I think we're missing that point.
But it also allows you to spend it, though.
Oh, absolutely, but that would be saying that that I'm going to be reckless, that the council as a whole is going to be reckless, and I don't feel anyone up here has been reckless with the dollars in terms of projects and things like that. I feel all 9 of you have been cost conscious and have looked at the dollars through the budget meetings. I applaud it. All of the entire council for going through the budget meetings and going through the line items and looking at things. That is absolutely, it's excellent. But just because we're approving it doesn't mean that we're going to spend it. And I understand what you're saying. We can spend it. But I'm just as cost conscious as the next person.
But you know what, Mr. Mayor, though, we've been asking about this for a long period of time. I mean, when we first had the issue with the basketball courts where GIF came into play because somebody complained in April 2018 about the tennis courts, it morphed into something huge because of the curving, the drainage, and the settling of the catch basins.
It did.
We had an opportunity that time to invest, 20 grand to resurface the entire courts and be done with it. When we didn't, we did a patch job on that, only to rip it up all over again. So, through that time and where we're at right now, and we dealt with the budget sessions and this money coming up, but you were part of this, so you had full awareness of this 400 grand. And then we're waiting on Keller Kirkpatrick from their September of 2016 obligation to provide us with this information to make a fair justification of how much money to spend. We're just sticking with that. But now we have, hold on, now we have evidence from another town. Randolph has got phenomenal facilities there that show that they have actually spent far less with a great product. And for some reason, we're not willing to somewhat review that, or maybe even reach out to them.
No one said that, no one's gonna review that. Nobody said that. We're just looking to approve a dollar amount so we can possibly move forward with the project, and that we can move forward with that and get that done. No one said that we're not gonna look at different things. You heard Mr. Jackson say that we may look at scoreboards, we may look at the substrate. There's different types. Haven't seen the Randolph proposal. When I went in to look at the basketball courts and I sat down with our engineering, there are options that were given to us. And there's service life on certain types of substrates. So there's a cement substrate that has a longer service life as opposed to asphalt, or your roads are made out of bituminous concrete, whatever you want, technical terms you want to use. And there's different service lives to those substrates, to the surfaces. So I don't know, in all fairness, I don't know what substrates Randolph has. I don't know if their topography is different. That I don't know if our area is unique, where we have to do a little bit of excavation and level things. And I don't know that. I don't know if we are comparing apples to apples. But I'm willing to look at it.
But even if we did do that, though, we got a John Deere 50 now.
Listen, Mr. Kelly, we could go on.
I know, but I'm just saying that what we have here, though, is 400 grand.
Okay,
and you're sticking to a number rather than let's look at it, and then we can kind of come close to that number. Because again, there's no mechanism to stop spending it. If we cap the limit and we went like half, which is double Randolph, which we're never going to achieve that amount from what Randolph did versus what we want to do.
I have faith in this council that they'll be cost conscious. I have faith in the administration that they're going to supply excellent advice.
And then we can table this for next.
And when we go out to bid, you will have a final say if we approve the project or not. You will get another chance to say if you want to spend that money or not.
Is there anything stopping now to send it out just to get an estimate or a cost analysis from somebody else?
Yes, because I don't have the funds. I never put a bid out without having the funds. And you can't do that.
But when we had K&K do it, did we have the funds then, or is there a different mechanism?
We didn't have, K&K was a professional to give us the mechanism for the design. We had the money for that. We did not have the money to go out to bid for the project.
Give a cost analysis, though, for it. Is there somebody else that can give us another cost analysis in regards to that? I mean, Mr. Fierro, Paul Fierro.
But they're giving us a cost analysis. It doesn't mean that's what the project is. It's an estimate. We don't know what the project will be till you go out to bid. When the bids come back, then that's the amount that it costs.
But we also have proof from another town that
the money can't be spent without council approval. You can vote on this tonight, this can be approved, but the money cannot be spent once the project begins, after we go out to bid.
They're going to spend it no matter what.
Don't we, excuse me, can I just ask, when you go out to bid,
I didn't do the litigation, sir. Talk to the mayor about it.
Yes, Mrs. Smith?
excuse me, when you go out to bid and you get 3 bids, correct?
I don't know how many bids we're going to get. I could get 20, I could get 10. It depends on who contractors submit.
I'm trying to just...
It's not a quote.
All right, so you get 1 bid. Say it's $275,000.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm just...
Yeah.
So that's deducted from the $400,000. The rest is removed from the...
No, we just wouldn't go out to bond. Is that...
I'm trying to clarify this.
Or it would be used for a future Peterson project. It would not, we wouldn't spend 4, we would only spend the 275.
And what would happen to the balance of that money?
Transfer resolution.
It would be, no. It would either be canceled because it's in a bond ordinance, or we simply wouldn't bond it, or it would be
And who
repurposed for
determines
something
that?
else. The council.
So if we approve $400,000 and you get a bid for $275 and one for $400,000 and we choose the $275, we can cancel the balance of that $400,000 for the
You
the
can.
bond?
You can cancel it, you can repurpose it, you could leave it, and it could be used for, future basketball improvements or whatever you
Well, the
want, but
basketball gets improved, it shouldn't need more improvements.
shouldn't.
The fields are the
Shouldn't,
problem.
but it's an option.
Is it only stuck to that, though? Could it be, like, let's say we have the ordinance for that, and then there's something else that we have, like a rec center? I know Mr. Quinn has been pushing that since his first day on the dais.
If you read the bond ordinance, I think it's on page 3, it's spelled out. Peterson Field improvements, basketball courts, concretes, lights, and scoreboard for $400,000. So it's specific for what it's to be used for.
Correct. But what I think Mr. Kelly's asking is, you said it could be repurposed. So could it be repurposed?
Through an ordinance.
Through
A
an ordinance.
repurposed ordinance,
But could
which
it
you
be
would vote on.
repurposed? He used the example of the rec center.
Yes.
So whatever's left, could that be set aside for the purpose of a rec center?
You can through a repurposed ordinance. It's a separate ordinance that you would vote on.
Yeah, you have to introduce another.
Could we repurpose it to fix the courts at Telemark too?
You can repurpose it for whatever you choose.
Anything.
But it comes before the council for that repurpose.
Correct, and it comes before you to vote on the bid when it comes out.
We don't approve the bid. They don't do it anyway.
I know.
But Mr. Finlander, you're not even willing to adjust the number right now. I mean,
No.
why wouldn't you? I thought we were on a route to reduce that.
That's my point.
So as soon as this $400,000 is approved, if and when this $400,000 is approved, we immediately go into debt for that $400,000?
No.
No, you don't go into debt until I do a note sale, which is typically around November, but I don't know if we'll be doing one, depending on what we do now.
Okay, so
but-
do you do the note sale prior to getting the bids and we know how much money's being spent?
Hopefully not. I mean, I'm hoping we can move this along faster than I'll be going out for a note sale.
So if we get the bids before the note sale and they're less than $400,000, you will do the debt?
The debt would be
according
lower
to
than...
Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to clarify things for everybody.
Those are great questions.
Anybody else have any discussion?
Can I have that in writing?
Go ahead, Mr. Jenny.
To the point that was just made about asking for that in writing, it's completely unenforceable. What we have here is a $400 cost within a $2.7 million bond ordinance. We don't have a plan for that, how that money's going to be spent. It's tantamount to a blank check to the administration. It's not a responsible act of the council to give blank checks. With regard to the record of the administration and the mayor specifically, the mayor, as a member of the council, voted for every spending increase and every tax increase that he could as a member of the council. But as his first budget as mayor, he sent us a budget that was an increase. It took the work of the council to bring that back to a level point. So the fact is, the track record isn't here, and the council has a responsibility to not issue blank checks. Thank you.
Council President. Council President.
Lisa, what?
I have a question.
The original budget that was presented to the council was a reduction in the municipal portion of the tax bill?
I believe it was.
Okay.
I believe it was.
Thank you.
So, I have a question. I'm going to ask Mr. Jackson this question. I think back in February, perhaps, there was discussion about funds appropriated for fields. I believe that discussion came between you and Mr. Palumbo on the dais here, and how disappointed you were that they never were used the way they should have been for the fields. I think that was a major concern back then with you, and I think that without the appropriate plan, and all this time, it could have been passed if we had gotten what we've been asking for, okay? For over a year, as Mr. Jednak said. I think our job is to watch the money and make sure it's getting appropriated where we want it to. I do believe the major problem in this town are our fields, and I don't see anything being addressed about our fields. I really don't. It's not even mentioned. I think Mr. Sackett has a big concern about that too. I really, truly do, and it's been expressed here. So, I mean, that's my opinion. This is just all Band-Aids, and there's no real answer to staging. I'd rather get the bond for a full plan to move ahead and bring us into competitive fields and grounds of surrounding towns. And that's all I have to say, really. So,
Well, I think the whole problem is the fields haven't been addressed since 2008. I mean, they haven't been addressed for the last 10 or 15 years. Now we have to do everything all at once. So you have to account for that. The fields all flood, right, Jonathan? Yeah? And this is just the basketball court. So you're talking millions of dollars, so we really have to be very frugal.
Well, I think that we're looking to make smaller incremental improvements, and we're going to we're going to have additional meetings because we've been in a stall pattern with some of the heads of the different recreational groups: soccer, football, baseball, lacrosse. We're going to speak with the heads of those groups and get some input. I like to work in a collaborative manner and get input from people, so you get buy-in. So 10 years down the line, when there's a new group that took over, that we can say as a council, as an administration, as a mayor, hey, listen, I listened to the people who are coaching, the guys who are doing the work on the fields, and that they presented this plan at the time that they felt was adequate. So those talks are going to continue.
You know, Mr. Mayor, we actually had, Mr. Jeniak and I were attending a financial meeting over in the conference area. And when we came over, there was a meeting with some of the football players, and Mr. Kritz was one of them, Mr. Young was another one, Mr. Walters, and we were asking maybe of getting two of each representative of each sport, so we can put together and sit down to see what the actual needs and wants were. Of course, putting our needs first and our wants secondary. And they were going to do that, but it's kind of tough getting everybody together to somewhat get an idea, because what Mr. Jackson may think that's a great idea, doing something with the basketball courts, maybe the basketball group doesn't feel that way. Or maybe, you know, what we would put into the basketball court, putting away 400 grand, we only put 200,000 away, and then we apply it to maybe drainage for the football field that the football field needs so dire. That would be an avenue to do that. And it just looks like we're just focusing on this one number of $400,000. We took away 200 grand from the fire department for their fire pumper and some other monies in other areas, but we're focusing on this, which is definitely an absorbent amount of money that's overestimated to do that type of a project.
We can reappropriate the monies, as we said.
Well, we can also reduce that level too.
We can go on all night. It's up to the council what they want to do, so I'll let you guys continue to discuss.
Thank you, Mr.
I weighed in and gave my opinions.
Mr. Jeniak?
To your point and Councilmember Smith's point, we're looking at an overall potential millions of dollars of costs here, and we have no plan. And that is why we suggested previously and took a motion and a vote to put this before the voters. Let the voters decide, especially with no plan for how this is going to be spent. Let them decide if they want to spend this money. The township already has, I believe the Financial Review Board previously reported to us, about $20 million in debt. And here we are adding another $2.7 million. And we don't have a plan for this money.
Mr. Jackson, are you okay with that, giving the voters the opportunity to make the decision on this amount of money? Mr. Jackson?
I have no comment.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. We can go round and round.
Do you think if it went on referendum, do you think it would pass? Mr. Jackson?
I have no comment. I'm not engaging in banter with you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Can I ask Mr. Jackson a question?
Go ahead.
Do you have an amount that you want to reduce it to? I pressed it twice.
Yeah, I honestly don't. I think it's up to them to come back and get the bids and look at the specs and give us options, and I think that's what I asked for. That's what I think it's up to. I'm not an expert in it. Nobody here is an expert in this. I can tell you I've been to the Randolph courts, the topography, the ADA compliancy needs, and all those things are vastly different than what we have at Peterson, but I'm not an expert, so I would look for them to come back and, put a number out there after they go out and bid it out.
Funny you mentioned ADA compliance. We're still not ADA compliant on the gazebo at Parks Lake. Correct?
We're looking into that.
Correct.
We've been looking into it for over a year. Thank you.
Okay.
It's not even a CO still. Is there any more discussion?
No.
Thank you very much for participating in that. I was hoping that we would have a different outcome, maybe like a number that maybe we can reduce this moving forward. I'm sorry.
So what are you doing with the ordinance to introduce? Because
I was hoping that we could table it in between now and then.
I want to make a motion to vote on this, to adopt.
Second.
That would be to introduce.
Yeah, if you introduce it.
To introduce it, yeah.
Yeah. I can open it up for that motion. I'm not moving it anywhere. I was just hoping we would have a consensus because we still have the 16th of August to meet the requirement deadline for the referendum.
I'd rather vote to introduce it.
Okay.
Did you have a second?
I second.
Thank you.
Do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedinak?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
Not at 400,000.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
President Kelly?
I abstain until we get further information. So we have 5 yeses, we have 3 noes, and 1 abstention. Motion carries for the introduction. Thank you again, everybody, for participating. I have new business that's on there.
I'd like to make a motion, Council President Kelly.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to make a motion, please, for new business.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to remove from the agenda under new business the rules and regulations for the volunteer fire department. This is a function of administration, and I'd like to hear from administration about this item.
I second it.
Wait a second.
Well, the administration can talk about it, Mr. Sackett.
I'm making the motion to remove it, and then I want to hear, I'd like to hear from administration about this.
Council President, that sounds contradictory.
Mr. Waters, please. Mr. Waters, I've asked you several times, please. That's all. I mean, I'm just asking for the courtesy. I understand that, you know what, you create it, and then when you do it, then everybody feels everybody else can do it if it continues. I'm asking you nicely, if you could just please compose yourself, don't speak out. You know, when your time comes, I give you every opportunity to speak in the microphone, nobody interrupts you. I'm just asking you to please just refrain from speaking out. I'm sorry? But your public portion is not open anymore. So the calling out from the audience, you know, I'm never going to remove you, and you know that. But I'm just asking you if you can just please refrain yourself from yelling out loud. That's all. It's a simple question. It's a simple act of courtesy. You know, if you can't control yourself, I mean, I don't know what else I can do, but it throws off everything. And when you're hearing it in the background, I don't hear exactly what you're saying, but the tone and the sarcasm and the comments and derogative digs and stuff like that, I recognize it all. I'm only asking you to stop it if you could. That's all. Mr. Press, I'm asking you the same if you could please stop. I don't do the same. Thank you, guys. Mrs. Seeger, can you talk about the rules and regulations for the fire department?
Yes, I would like to defer to Mr. Perone to speak about that.
Go ahead, Mr. Perone.
So, I've spoken to Bob Sheard, who we all know is having issues, personal, having personal issues. Is this off?
You can push it on or something like that?
There's no button.
Can you just tap it? Yeah, here you go.
And the issue is whether or not the fire department rules and regulations will be amended, and they have to be amended by ordinance. We do know that there's been a vote of the fire department chiefs or members.
Yeah, 4 to 5, I believe it was.
Where they want to extend the eligibility requirements for the distance that a deputy chief can live from the township, outside the border of the township. And it's my understanding that they have voted on that. When I spoke to Bob today, he called me, even though he's busy doing other things. He said that he would prepare a document to present to the council to give them an understanding of what's gone on. He's going to put it in writing, and then he's going to ask for a change in the ordinance. The way I read the fire department ordinance, really it's within the realm or authority of the fire department itself to change its own rules and regulations. And it's sort of a rubber stamp by the council if in fact the fire department has approved them. That's the way I read it. We'll prepare an ordinance in due time once we get the document prepared by Mr. Sheard, as he expressed to me he would do today.
And the reason why I put it on the new businesses was that, there's been some conversations and communications with the fire department. I know that there was some communication with the administration, with Mrs. Seeger and Mr. Dyer a couple of weeks ago, with one of the individuals that are there. And then currently, right now, they are under the idea that they can move forward and that rule doesn't apply because this is why I was questioning this. They think currently now, since there was already a vote at one of their meetings to change it from the word 1 road mile to 3 mile radius in the township border, can they now move forward with that? Or do they have to wait until the ordinance has been drafted and then presented to the council for approval so that now their rules and regs can be enforced?
I can only act within the scope of the ordinance that says that the council shall approve the rules and regulations. It seems perfunctory, but I don't think I could step outside the bounds of the ordinance.
Could we make a motion now to amend the rules and regs?
No, because you need an ordinance.
Okay. So
you can't do it by resolution.
So if we can't do it by resolution or motion, and it has to be done by an ordinance, and even though that they had a vote already to modify the rules and regulations, can they now act on the modification that they voted on without an ordinance being voted on?
I think it may be subject to legal challenge, and we already saw.
Because they're under the inclination that that's the case, that they, right now, that does not apply, that their change is in effect.
From my perspective, I would be more cautious, and I would say you need an ordinance. If the fire department, you can always have a situation where the fire department does what you just said, goes ahead. Nobody complains about it. None of the people who are involved. I know that there was one person, I'm not going to mention his name, that filed a grievance. If that person decides that they are not going to take issue with it, whether or not an ordinance passes first, then maybe it's something that'll go by the boards and it won't be challenged.
But yeah, that's not an incentive that you want to push, though. I mean,
well, I can't speak for some other person.
Right.
What their motivation.
I mean, they're looking for a legal remedy, and the other concern.
But that's not a problem, Mr. Kelly. Let me tell you why. Right now, you don't have a vacancy in the position of deputy chief. It's my general understanding that the way it's set up, that deputy chief may become the chief as of January 1. And the situation is that on January 1, that the deputy chief seat would be vacant if in fact something wasn't done. But to promote this and push it forward now, it's not going to change anything because the deputy chief will remain the deputy chief till the end of the year.
Well, yeah, but they have an election now.
Well, so they can have an election.
So if there's an election that's now, and the eligibility is not going to be in the policy or their rules and regulations lawfully, then that election that took place could be voided because they don't live in that radius that they're changing it to.
Which is why I'm saying wait for the ordinance.
Well, what I'm saying is they believe right now that...
I get it, but I'm saying it's not going to change anything for the fire department because we'll have enough time for Mr. Shear to make his presentation, for it to be presented to the council for a first and a second reading, and they can vote at whatever time they decide to vote before January 1 of next year, and there will be no vacancy.
But the election, it's now.
The fact that they're voting, and if there's a...
Mrs. McCormick, when's the election? It already took place in July.
It took place, but...
And then there was no consent of that person.
Correct.
Now, when's the re-election for it?
Re-election is basically waiting upon, from my understanding, and I don't know all the legal mumbo jumbo, but from my understanding is we're waiting on the ability to at least amend that to open up the mileage.
Right.
So that qualified candidates can apply, because right now it's limiting the fire department. I don't know the legal repercussions, I just know we're just waiting on that, and we can't have an election. So we can redo an election, but I think the hope is to
Have it done first before the election is taking place.
Yeah, I think, and I could be wrong, we can't do the election.
But like I said, speaking to some of the members, they are under the idea right now that they can move forward with having an election.
They'll do so at their own...
Well, I'm just telling you what I was informed.
If they do, they would do so at their own peril from the perspective...
Well, they want to do it lawfully. They don't want to have an issue.
Well, I don't know what the individuals who are involved, are going to do. But if they wait for the ordinance to accept the change, which is, from my understanding, is going to be just a rubber stamp, then in fact, whatever that change may be, if it turns from 1 mile to 3 miles or whatever it is, then they'll have an opportunity to vote for a deputy chief who qualifies, who may live within that 3 mile. I'm not sure if it's a radius. I think it's a radius.
It does say the change is radius from one. There was no definition of road mile. So, two of the individuals, I think, lived within a mile, but there was no definition of the road mile to define that. So then they all agreed on having a 3-mile radius of the township border.
The other thing is that there are actually 3 documents. There's not only are the rules and regulations and an ordinance, there's also bylaws.
Yeah.
Now, neither
well, even our SOPs, there's some conflicting...
Well, but neither the ordinance nor the rules and regulations address the vote. The bylaws do. And the bylaws, they can change them whatever they want because they don't have to be accepted by the township in the context of the ordinance. It's just the rules and regs that have to be accepted by the township. So if they wanted to change their bylaws to allow for another vote, they can do that. They don't have to ask anybody. The problem is that the rules and regulations still talk about qualifications of the deputy chief.
There's still a roadblock.
It doesn't deal with the vote. Vote's strictly bylaws.
Well, there's still eligibility, though, that they want to resolve so they can have that vote.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
They're going to vote on the eligibility of an individual who lives a certain distance.
And not getting into it with the other individual that's involved with it, is it something that another person can draft the ordinance so we can move this forward so that, what it is that this has been going on for close to 3 years, even prior to the current fire director, and there's some other stuff that's been going on that the fire department would like to change. Is there a way that maybe we can have maybe a...
Well, they have to work through it directly. That's in the ordinance. And it's unfortunate.
Does the director have to write the ordinance?
He's providing a document.
The department has to work through the director.
Okay.
In order to make the presentation. That's the way I read the ordinance.
Okay.
But I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. He said, I talked to him today.
No. Under the circumstances, absolutely. But again, these are things that have been going on for. I was just wondering if there's a way that we can expedite. Here are firefighters and EMS that respond in seconds and minutes to calls, and here they are looking for something to do and change, and it's been going on for quite some time. Again, it has no reflection of who the director is now or then. But the amount of time that lapsed on all this stuff for that length of time, if there was a way that we could have a better continuity between the fire department and our administration, or do we need to have a liaison to somewhat circumvent some of the concerns? Everybody's shaking their head, but here we are 3 years out.
No, I'm not shaking my head.
No, Mrs. Seeger was.
No, that's what the director is supposed to say. That's why the director is
Yeah.
what he is. He is the liaison, de facto, if not, in name. The other thing is, like I said, there will not be a vacancy in deputy chief until January 1. There's plenty of time to get this resolved.
Yeah.
Without.
But they're still looking for an election now before then. I'm just telling you what Mrs. McCormick, I'm only telling you what I've been conveyed to. That's all.
I don't really have anything more I can tell you. That's what I know.
Okay. So no matter what, they need an ordinance to be approved by the council in order to enforce the rules and regs for that change from 1 road mile to 3 mile radius. Okay. Is there a way we can shoot an email over to them to inform them of that?
I spoke to the chief yesterday, and I told him Mr. Sheard has his answer. He will give it to him as soon as he can. He has no problem waiting.
Okay. That's Mr. Heath you're talking about, Chief Heath? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any? Mr. Sackett, you have any questions? No? Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
I just want to know, do you think it'll be ready for September 10th meeting, the ordinance?
Well, I think, what's today?
August 13th.
Well, I would hope so.
Okay.
It'll be initiated by Mr. Sheard, and then from that point, once I get the directives, it's not going to take.
Okay. So that they can at least be advised that it should be ready by the September 10th meeting, and then the second meeting, that's the introduction, the second meeting would be the approval.
Yes, and then you gotta wait so many days, and then they can go ahead with their election.
How many days?
They can take
20 days.
20 days.
Oh, it's only 2. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Now, if there was one individual that was involved or is abstained from that, if one was to challenge that, would it stall or stay the ordinance and have to?
No, they would have to, they can challenge whatever they want to challenge at that point.
Yeah, but nothing would.
I can't, look, I'm not going to get in, first of all, I'd have to see what they're challenging and in what respect before I can make a comment on it, but.
Yeah.
But if the township passes an ordinance and the fire department, adjusts the rules and regulations, I saw the grievance, had nothing to do with the regs or the ordinance, it had to do with the bylaws, which is why the township really didn't have.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the grievance part of it, though. Okay, thank you. That's informative. On to reports. Mr. Jeniak? Go ahead. Mr. Jeniak, go ahead.
Council President, per the code, ordinances take effect 30 days after adoption.
So are we following the ordinance or statute?
Statute, I don't know what code is referring to. What section of code is referring to.
Okay. Do you have the citation of the code?
Administrative code, Council President.
Is there a section of the code, Mr. Jeniak? I understand.
I don't have it.
What's that?
I don't have it before me.
Okay. Is there anything else?
No.
Thank you. Going on to reports, Mr. Quinn?
Yes. I can't believe summer is almost over, and the pep rally for football and cheerleading is the 30th at Peterson Field.
Of August?
Of August.
Oh, Mr. Quinn.
Yes, everybody got an invite for that. I want to thank engineering and Bobby Shear and administration for helping the resident on Route 15 who had a water backup that was caused by somebody who had bought the old Sharky's nursery and did some boring and damaged the pipe that drainage from the catch basins go to the Rockaway River and backed up into her basement, flooded her boiler, her hot water heater, and her washer machine. Our guys responded, everybody worked. Allison worked very hard. They're still working on getting some of the wrinkles out. and I appreciate everything you guys did. I know she sent a letter thanking everybody for their quick response. In fact, she even baked cookies for everybody, so thank you. Also, I received a call from a resident at the Town Square Village about too many cars parked on both sides. Our police department responded quickly, and no tickets were given out. People were told to move their cars so an ambulance or fire truck could get through. They did, so everybody did a great job. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mrs. Smith?
Well, I just wanted to thank administration and the mayor. I had numerous complaints about the dump trucks on Mount Hope Road and Mount Hope Avenue. I forwarded the one of the emails to administration. The mayor called me right away. Said Chief McFarland was going to be contacting the state police to work with the state police. I did see a state police vehicle today there, and he would be addressing the speeding. But we can't address the number of trucks, so I totally did that. And also, while I had the mayor on the phone, I made another suggestion. He agreed with me that turn the lights on Mount Hope Avenue by the mall there. Yeah, Avenue. There's so many accidents at all those intersections all the time. So a suggestion was made that when a light turns red, the other light turns green, like within so many seconds. If that could be delayed a little bit longer, give everybody time to stop and see what the rest of the people are doing. Mayor agreed. I want to know, what did the chief say? Did you?
It's something that's going to have to be taken up with some of the adjustments for those lights are done through the state.
Oh, I thought it was the county. But
Yeah, county, state.
Yeah.
So,
But is he going to bring to them, or did he?
I will remind him again.
I would appreciate that.
You know,
We've had some really serious accidents where you get off Route 80 onto Mount Hope Avenue. Quite a few serious accidents there.
People, when the light turns, they see it turn and yell, they step.
Well, if they're going south on Mount Hope Avenue and you're coming off west, they fly there, and I tell people to just wait, even if they blow the horn at you, just make sure those cars stop, because I personally know 4 people that have been in accidents there. So, that's all I have to say.
Definitely going to be looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Abrams?
I just want to make recognition to the road department. They've been out and about with all the milling and paving and watching what's going on in the Birchwood area, and they're doing their due diligence, and it's really moving along very well.
Mr. Geniak?
Council President, I just wanted to say congratulations to the firefighters and EMS that were appointed by the council this evening, as well as a happy Labor Day to everyone on September 2nd, and happy Grandparents' Day coming up on September 8th. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Mrs. New?
No report, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson?
No report, thank you.
Mr. Sackett?
I had 3 things, but they're all set, so I just want to wish everyone a happy rest of the summer. Thank you.
They stole your idea. Mr. Freelander?
Talk fast. Library, quiet room is full speed ahead. It's almost finished. And I want to thank Morris County Historical. We got a grant for the Ford Face House, a small amount this year, but they can now plan infrastructure.
How much was it, Mr. Freelander?
About $34,000.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's not small.
No, but it will be a lot larger once they turn in the plans for next year. But they're getting their money, so good job. And that's it. Enjoy the holiday coming up.
I have a couple of things. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to Morris County DPW, Mr. D'Agostino, and Mr. St. John, who had a phenomenal job of maintaining the roads and bridges within Rockaway Township. And they're always doing something to Green Pond and being one step ahead of doing maintenance on that. cutting back all of the growth on the sides of the roads in the shoulder area. And they're very responsive if you do have an issue. They're there within either that day or the next morning, early. I do also want to wish everybody a happy Labor Day. I do have one thing. Sometimes I come across in some of the stuff that I do with old dwellings and buildings, and come across some really interesting stuff, antiques, artifacts, pictures, photos. And I was going through a house that was doing a clean out. I had an opportunity to go in there to do some picking. And I had come across a document. It's a First Catholic Slovak Women's Union. And this was something in Hibernia, New Jersey. And it was from 1903. It's the original seal that's on there. And it's in English and it's also in Slovak, and it just says this is to certify that the First Catholic Slovak Women's Union in the United States of North America, reposing special trust and confidence in the officers and members of the BA Society of Blessed Virgin Mary at Hibernia, State of New Jersey, and hereby grant this charter unto them and their successors legally admitted and qualified according to the conditions of law and union, admitting them as a branch of the Catholic Slovak Women's Union, United States of America. So this was originally incorporated back in October of 1899, and it's been history since that to the 1900s. So I did, Mr. Freelander does a phenomenal job with the Historical Society and all your work and efforts that you do, and I know you have a passion for that. I do as well, and Mrs. Licker was here that we were going to give that to. Do you feel comfortable to take this from me?
Sure, did you have it, did you bring it to the roadshow?
No, it doesn't matter. I think it's worth more in possession of the township than it is anything. As crazy as it sounds, there was some other person that was there that there were some things, unfortunately, I couldn't get because they were of value. Even though there's some history, there was more of a value to him, so I couldn't get them. But this was something I could grab. There was some small furniture that had some age to it that was pretty interesting. So if we can, maybe you want to just pass it down to Manny. I didn't fold it. It was kind of kept in cardboard. You can maybe curl it. Just don't curl.
I wouldn't roll it. I think it's back.
There's some stuff that's there. It was already pre-damaged on that. The other thing is we have school starting shortly. I mean, I can't get over that the 4th of July it felt like it was only a couple days ago. And here we are going into Labor Day and then the starting of school. How are we making out with some of the Class 3s?
We're doing very well. We have some applications in. We had a shared service agreement, an original one. We tried to come in as cost effective as possible for the Board of Ed and for the township, and it wasn't working. We weren't getting applicants. So what we had to do is go back to the Board of Education and ask them if we could increase the hourly wage for the Class 3s. We've gotten in some additional applications, quite a few. We're in the process of ordering cars for the officers that are going to come on board. So the project is going to be here sooner than later. I can't tell you if it's going to happen right on the first day of school, right? But we're very, very close, and all the hurdles have been overcome in terms of that.
When we talked last about this, especially with the cars and stuff like that, now that you have your increase from Mrs. Seeger, you informed me that you were going to send me some of the information about the cars. We had the vehicle review committee, and I was just wondering if you could still submit me some of the information.
Sure. What happened is we lost some of those original cars. I'll have to check with the chief and see where he's at. If there's some new, they're used cars, they're used vehicles. We get them with low mileage on them because they're going to be purposed for the schools. So they're going to be primarily at the schools, going from the police department to each school. They're not going to be a patrol unit. They're not going to be running for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. So that's why we buy used cars with minimal equipment in them. Lights, radio, first aid. They don't need the video equipment and all of that, computers. They don't need all that. So we had to go back and look and see. Cars go quickly from this vendor. They move fastly. So I have to look I have to check with Marty and see.
And then when we're doing with some of these cars, though, we're not like buying salvage cars, though.
Well, some of the cars are, they're used and they're refurbished from a vendor down in Newark. Salvage meaning what? That they had water damage and all that?
Well, salvage would be that like the car was totaled at one time for whatever reason, flood, accident, crash.
I don't know what type of vehicles they get in. All I can tell you is that I have 3 of them currently that I use as a class 3 from that vendor, and we've had no problems with any of the vehicles. So they seem to be a reliable, reliable vendor.
Okay. With that, I don't have any other comments. Mr. Mayor?
I just want to go over quickly the numbers from Rockaway Township Day that we had on June 8th. We sat down in July with Allison Kohler, who was the person who put the event together, who ran it.
$9 grand, right?
We got
$9 grand?
Yeah, just under $9,000, $8,849, and then we made. Now, there was a few other, there was expenses that weren't included in this, a couple $1,000s for the DPW that were not included in this, so we're looking around $6,000, $7,000 that we made, and what we did is that was put into a recreation trust?
Yes.
Recreation trust. So the event was a success, not only for our residents having a good time and getting down there and enjoying the day. We had great weather, but we made some money on it. We hope to make more money. We hope to do this again year after year. And once again, I want to thank Jonathan. A couple of years ago when we brought this to the table, it was slow getting started, and then we hooked up with Allison, and she made it all possible. It was, it's difficult to do these types of events. It's difficult,
Well, she was very generous, too.
Oh,
I think we should mention that, because normally you don't get 50% of the VIG.
Okay, I don't know how they do it, but
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
We did in this one, and
I think it should be noted that Allison went above and beyond. There were some hiccups that were there, and she still did it and pulled it out last minute.
Yep.
I mean, this is what she does on a normal basis, but as far as the 50%, that's not normal.
Okay, I don't know if it is or isn't.
It was more of a donation from her, from the percentage that she gave.
From the first conversation, it was 50%, going back a year and a half.
Yeah, you weren't involved with that anymore, though. She wouldn't work with you.
No, that's not true.
That's true.
Mrs. Kohler said that because she's a longtime Rockaway
No, she
resident,
lives on Queens Road.
and she loves Rockaway Township.
She does. She lived on Queens Road, and she's a staper and a pillar in the community, and she has a passion for it.
Yeah, so ultimately, without all, we got through all that. It was a success. We made some money. We put some money into the recreation program that we've been focusing on, and we hope to do it next year. And I thank everybody for coming down. Jonathan Tucker came to help clean up the next day. We had people there. Manny came, Jack came, a couple other people came in and out. I couldn't keep an eye on everybody, but people were helping, pitching in. It was just a good time, and we made some money. So.
Awesome, thank you. Mrs. Seeger?
No comment.
Mrs. Palmieri?
No.
Mrs. Ferrante? Mr. Dyer? Motion to adjourn?
Senior picnic. One more thing, I'm sorry. Senior picnic is on September
13th, I think.
September.
It's after the council meeting, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Can I have a second for the adjournment?
Yeah.